Across history, empires crossed oceans, deserts, and mountain ranges, convinced that every frontier could eventually be brought under control. Yet 7 nations are often described as unconquered, lands where armies entered, treaties were imposed, but lasting domination proved elusive. The legend is powerful. The truth is even more interesting because being invaded is not the same as being permanently subdued. Some of these countries lost territory. Some endured occupation. Others survived by bargaining with powers too dangerous to defeat directly. Their survival came from different weapons: geography, resistance, reform, diplomacy, and the ability to bend without disappearing. This is not a list of nations never touched by empire. It is the story of 7 lands empire could never fully control. To understand them, we must separate myth from history and ask what conquest actually means when a nation survives the conqueror. An army may seize a capital. A foreign power may dictate policy. But control becomes fragile when the countryside, institutions, or identity remain beyond reach. Our journey begins where imperial maps repeatedly met their most unforgiving enemy, the land itself. Afghanistan rises from the crossroads of Central and South Asia, guarded by the Hindu Kush and cut into valleys that rarely obey distant rulers. The country was never literally unconquered. Alexander crossed it, and later armies from Arab, Turkic, and Mongol worlds entered its cities. But conquest here often shattered into local resistance, shifting alliances, and the stubborn autonomy of communities beyond the main roads. In 1839, Britain invaded during the Great Game, occupied Kabul, and placed a preferred ruler on the throne. 3 years later, the British retreat from Kabul became a symbol of how quickly occupation could collapse beyond protected walls. Britain returned in 1878 and won major battles, yet still stopped short of absorbing Afghanistan into British India. Instead, London gained influence over Afghan foreign affairs, while internal rule remained in Afghan hands, a compromise, not complete conquest. On imperial maps, Afghanistan became a buffer between British India and the Russian Empire, valuable precisely because neither side could safely own it. In 1919, Emir Amanullah launched the Third Anglo-Afghan War to reclaim full control over the country's foreign policy. The fighting was brief, but the settlement allowed Afghanistan to conduct its own foreign relations and confirmed a new degree of independence. Afghanistan's secret was not invincibility. It was the ability to make every occupation expensive, every alliance temporary, and every victory difficult to convert into rule. Empires could enter Afghanistan. The greater challenge was staying long enough to make the country obey. Far to the southwest, Ethiopia defended something rare in 19th century Africa, an ancient state with its own court, church, armies, and diplomatic tradition. As European powers divided the continent, Italy attempted to turn a disputed treaty into a claim of protectorate over Ethiopia. Emperor Menelik II rejected that interpretation and built a coalition across regions that foreign observers had assumed would remain divided. Empress Tatu Betul helped shape strategy, mobilize support, and sustain the enormous logistical effort required to confront a modern European army. At Adwa in 1896, Ethiopian forces used numbers, local knowledge, modern rifles, and coordinated leadership against separated Italian columns. The result was a decisive Ethiopian victory that forced Italy to recognize the empire's independence. Across Africa and the wider Black world, Adwa became proof that colonial expansion was not inevitable. But Ethiopia's story also exposes the limits of the word unconquered. Fascist Italy invaded again in 1935 with aircraft, armor, and chemical weapons. Addis Ababa fell in 1936, and Italy declared an empire, yet resistance continued in the countryside. 5 years later, Ethiopian forces and allied troops restored Haile Selassie, ending an occupation that had never become secure or universally accepted. Ethiopia was invaded and occupied, but its state returned. Its survival rested on unity at Adwa, continued resistance, and a sovereignty the world could not permanently erase. Japan's defense began with water. The archipelago lay close enough to Asia for influence, yet far enough to make invasion a naval gamble. In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire had conquered a vast portion of Eurasia and demanded Japan's submission. When diplomacy failed, invasion fleets crossed from Korea in 1274, bringing tactics and weapons unfamiliar to many Japanese defenders. Japanese warriors resisted along the shore, while storms and logistical limits forced the first expedition to withdraw. 7 years later, the Mongols returned with a far larger force and found stronger walls waiting around Hakata Bay. Months of pressure ended when a powerful typhoon devastated much of the fleet. The event later remembered as the Divine Wind, or Kamikaze. For centuries afterward, no foreign empire established colonial rule over the main Japanese islands. When American warships arrived in 1853, Japan faced a different weapon: industrial power and the threat of forced opening. The Tokugawa government accepted unequal agreements, but the crisis triggered the Meiji reforms that transformed the military, industry, education, and state. Japan avoided colonization partly by becoming an imperial power itself, a truth that complicates any simple story of national resistance. After defeat in 1945, Japan was occupied by the Allies until 1952. It was not untouched, but its state and imperial institution were reshaped rather than replaced by a colony. North of the Gangetic Plain, Nepal occupies a vertical world, from tropical lowlands to valleys sealed behind the highest mountains on Earth. In the 18th century, the Gorkha kingdom unified the Kathmandu Valley and expanded rapidly along the Himalayan foothills. That expansion eventually collided with the British East India Company, whose frontier was moving north from Bengal. The Anglo-Nepalese War began in 1814 across difficult ridges, jungles, and forts where conventional formations struggled to move. Gorkha defenders earned a formidable reputation for discipline and close knowledge of terrain, even as the larger campaign turned against Nepal. British forces adapted, opened new routes, and eventually gained the advantage under commanders experienced in mountain warfare. The Treaty of Sugauli ended the war in 1816 and forced Nepal to surrender large territories. Yet the British did not annex the kingdom. A resident entered Kathmandu, but Nepal's monarchy and internal government survived. Former enemies then built a military relationship, and Gurkha soldiers entered British service without Nepal becoming part of British India. In 1923, Britain formally recognized Nepal as an independent and sovereign state. Nepal survived through resistance, geography, and accommodation, losing land, accepting influence, but preserving a state no empire chose to absorb completely. Thailand, then known as Siam, faced a different danger. It stood between British possessions to the west and French Indochina to the east. Unlike Afghanistan or Nepal, Siam's strongest defense was not remoteness. It was a court skilled at reading imperial rivalry. King Mongkut studied Western science and diplomacy, recognizing that survival required understanding the powers pressing toward his borders. His successor, Chulalongkorn, accelerated reforms in administration, education, transport, and law to make Siam harder to dismiss as a colonial target. Modernization strengthened the central state, but it did not eliminate foreign pressure or the unequal treaties limiting Siamese authority. In 1893, French gunboats forced their way toward Bangkok, and Siam surrendered territories east of the Mekong. Further agreements transferred Cambodian provinces to France and northern Malay states to Britain. The kingdom survived by conceding the edges to preserve the center, a painful strategy hidden inside the phrase "never colonized." Britain and France also valued Siam as a buffer, reducing the risk that their colonial armies would meet directly. During the Second World War, Japanese forces entered Thailand, and the government allied with Japan under intense pressure, adding another complicated chapter. Siam was never formally absorbed into a European empire, but independence came through reform, diplomacy, strategic concessions, and choices made under coercion. Bhutan's defense was built into the eastern Himalayas, where steep valleys were linked by passes that snow, rain, and distance could close for months. In the 17th century, Zhabdrung Ngawang Namgyal unified much of the country and constructed a network of fortress monasteries known as dzongs. These buildings were spiritual centers, administrative capitals, and defensive strongholds positioned to command the valleys around them. Bhutan repelled several Tibetan invasions, but its southern frontier later brought it into conflict with British India. The Duar War of 1864 and 1865 ended in British victory and the loss of fertile foothill territories. Under the Treaty of Sinsula, Bhutan ceded the Duars and received an annual subsidy from the British government. The settlement reduced Bhutan's territory, yet left its internal institutions and mountain core outside direct colonial administration. In 1910, the Treaty of Punakha gave Britain a guiding role in Bhutan's foreign relations while confirming non-interference in internal administration. Bhutan was therefore never formally colonized, but it survived through a protected relationship shaped by unequal power. Isolation alone did not save the kingdom. Its rulers traded territory and external freedom for continuity at home. Persia is the most difficult nation on this list because its history includes some of the most famous conquests ever recorded. Alexander defeated the Achaemenid Empire in the 4th century BCE and entered Persepolis as a conqueror. Centuries later, Arab armies defeated the Sasanian state and transformed the political and religious order of the Iranian plateau. Mongol invasions brought another devastating rupture, destroying cities and ending dynasties across the region. Yet Persian language, administration, art, and court culture repeatedly outlived conquerors and often reshaped the empires that entered Iran. By the 19th century, Persia faced Russia from the north and Britain from the south, losing territory and freedom of action without becoming a formal colony. The Anglo-Russian Convention of 1907 divided Persia into spheres of influence, even while both empires declared respect for its independence. During the First World War, Russian, British, Ottoman, and local forces operated across a country that had declared neutrality. In 1941, Britain and the Soviet Union occupied Iran to secure supply routes and oil, forcing Reza Shah to abdicate. Persia was conquered many times and occupied more than once. What endured was not immunity, but a state and civilization powerful enough to survive every interruption. These 7 nations did not share a single secret. Their survival came from different combinations of terrain, institutions, courage, and calculation. Afghanistan made occupation costly. Ethiopia defeated colonization at Adwa. Japan transformed before foreign powers could divide it. Nepal fought, lost land, and remained sovereign. Siam bargained away frontiers. Bhutan accepted protection to preserve its internal world. Persia survived not because it was never conquered, but because conquest never erased the culture capable of rebuilding the state. The phrase unconquered is therefore less a fact than a question. How much can an empire take before a nation ceases to be itself? History's answer is not found only in victories. Sometimes it lives in survival after defeat, in compromise without disappearance, and in memory stronger than occupation. Empires once drew these lands as prizes, buffers, corridors, and frontiers. The people who lived there saw something else, home. And that may be the hardest territory any empire has ever tried to conquer.